why there is such an intractable problem in Bosnia and Herzegovina in particular. Because Bosnia and Herzegovina in particular is the last remain of what the Balkans traditionally stood for. All of this talk today, we talk about the Balkans coming and going from the Balkans and so on. This really does not do historical justice to what the Balkans stood for. What did the Balkans stand for? It was since 1808 when the German cartographer followed in the footsteps of the Turkish anonymous Turkish cartographer, having given the name to the region. But it was since that time that it clearly became evident that the region is characterized by a tremendous diversity in historical sense as well as in contemporary sense. So the conundrum, the amalgamation, the overflowing, the cross-pollination of various ethnic, religious, linguistic communities that have lived on a relatively limited space have contributed to the term the Balkans. It is true, of course, that Chancellor Metternich of Imperial Austria has famously said that the Balkans begins south of the Landstrasse, that is, entire region between the southern suburbs of Vienna and Thessaloniki and Istanbul, is really the realm of the wild, of the savages, as it were. But it is likewise true that today people from all the Balkan countries come on the buses, getting off in Vienna at the central bus station, which is only a stone throw away from the salon in which the Chancellor has uttered those ominous words. Yet, the region of the savagery seems to be the moniker under which a member of international, particularly Western public opinion, continues to see the Balkans. But very few people have understood that the contradiction that contributes to the intractable problems in multicultural, multinational, and multi-confessional polities such as Bosnia and Herzegovina, to a lesser extent Macedonia, the rest of the countries have, particularly since the breakup of Yugoslavia, which in turn was half suicide, half murder, but since the breakup of Yugoslavia have all the regions, all the countries, the nation states that have emerged out of the ashes of the destroyed Yugoslavia have striven, have been motivated to emulate the European pattern. And what was the European pattern? It is the nation state. Since early 19th century, it is the nation state that becomes the dominant ideology how to organize a collective. And the process of for each and every ethnic community to possibly, in an ideal case scenario, acquire the instruments of the sovereign political will, that is, the nation state, have followed in the footsteps of the European historical example. I know very well that no, that's not how we meant, what the West Europeans said, but it is true that in the absence, in the 1980s, after the death of Tito, the erstwhile president of late Federation of Yugoslavia, there was precious few visionary projects that would maintain the trans-ethnic quality that held the polity formerly known as Yugoslavia together. Now, this sort of trans-ethnic ideology is at work in the larger European realm, is it not? Diversity in unity. I've never found a person who would successfully explain what does that slogan stand for. But it is likewise, just as the trans-ethnic ideology that held, as I said, former Yugoslavia together, brotherhood and unity, both the European and the former Yugoslav trans-ethnic slogan represent the screen upon which we project our own fears and our own desires. So no wonder that there was a discrepancy between the East, what one can say, East European pattern in general and the Balkan pattern in particular. And that is the acquisition of a nation state, very much in keeping with what the 19th century West European model has unearthed and put on the table. And the contradiction, of course, is that the Balkans as it used to be known, that is, for its diversity, for its Cop Macedoni, one of the symbolic markers of this conundrum, of this amalgamated identities, is caught between the rock and the hard place, between the Scylla of the nation state and the Charybdis of the normative life in the multitudes, be it cultural, confessional, and linguistic. Both are European demands. One is to have a nation state as the expression of the political sovereignty, and on the other to have the multicultural, multi-confessional, multi-whatnot structure in the society at large. So hence the contradiction. No wonder that then the Balkans can best be known for the region where people don't, when they have a toothache, don't go see a dentist, but simply pull the tooth out. Because that is something that has been de rigueur on the governmental level and on the supranational levels across the region that we very well know has been engulfed in the incomparable destruction. And out of this, now what comes? Provisionally seven nation states out of the former Yugoslavia, 7 nation states that are at odds with each other very often, barely viable on their own, and yet they would need to cooperate, trans-regional cooperation, transnational cooperation in the name of growth. But what are they facing is not only the governments that but also the people, the populace at large. They are facing numerous walls where before there haven't been any. So no wonder that the efforts of intellectuals, writers, poets, and essayists, much as they have in the figure of Radovan Karadzic and numerous others, contributed to fanning the flames of the war 20 years ago. But today, the effort that I participate in, and I'll briefly bore you with this for 2 more minutes, is one of those edifices that takes the bricks. No wonder that we publish magazine in a form of a brick. We take the bricks out of the walls, dividing the people's communities and polities, and built out of these bricks the bridge that is, in this case, a Sarajevo Notebooks, a magazine that I helped together with 6 former Yugoslav intellectuals establish in the early 2000s in order not to throw the baby out together with the bathwater, not to, after the disintegration of Yugoslavia was more or less complete, after the Dayton Agreement froze the conditions of war that dominated the region in the in the last decade of the preceding century, trying to facilitate the dialogue between the non-nationalist, non-exclusivist writers, intellectuals, poets, and essayists who, on the pages of the magazine that is published in Serbo-Croatian, regardless of a number of regional variations and nominations under which this language is known, we publish in Latin script. But we cast our net far and wide. And we do not only bring in the former Yugoslav writers, but we have successfully turned Sarajevo Notebooks into a showcase for the best writing from the region and beyond, trying to indicate in this minuscule manner the possibilities of dialogue, the possibilities of a trans-border and ethnic dialogue that is the sine qua non of any sort of future that we want to pursue together. However, in this neck of the woods, even the future is not what it used to be. Thank you.